Good afternoon and welcome to Real Chicks Rock Presents Real Discussions. I'm your host, Michelle Dosberg, and I'm super excited to be here. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood here in Atlanta. We are just so tickled to be here. Yes, we are, because I like my guest. I like the person that's sitting next to me. I know this is going to be a very informative and interesting conversation today. I love when I'm able to bring her here. So yes, we're going to introduce her in just a second. First of all, I want to thank all of the wonderful people that are taking time to check us out today. Let me give you a little background about what Real Chicks Rock is all about. We're all about creatively collaborating and connecting to raise awareness regarding issues that impact women. And we do it by way of community service, public speaking, mentoring, workshops, and the arts. And we have been doing this medium here, this platform, since April 16th, 2016.
Wow.
Do the math. My math's not that great. You handle the math, but yes, right?
Yeah.
So we've been doing it for a while. And so I have been honored to have this beautiful ray of sunshine with me. This is your third time?
I think so, the third time.
I think it's the third time. We love when this person comes, at least I do, because I laid everything out on the table and she helps me and she helps the listeners. It is my guest, Natalie Ellis. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I am good. This month is, what is it? Mental Health Awareness Month.
May, yes.
I'm wearing a t-shirt. She brought gifts.
Yes.
Look at that. Let me go this way.
Mental health matters.
Look at that. Mental health matters. It's so much to cover, Natalie. There's just so much going on. First of all, how are you? You look great.
Thank you.
You look great. You're radiating. You're beaming.
Thank you.
Are you taking care of your mental wealth and health?
I am doing my very best to do so.
Yeah.
And like I tell all my clients and everybody that I come across, that it's important to do that, and that taking care of our mental health is a daily journey. Okay, and it's something we have to do every day because, life is full of ups and downs. And so it's important that we take the time to take care of our mental health.
It is. And Natalie, I think we talked during the pandemic when it was starting, and now the pandemic is over. What are we seeing? People are still struggling with their mental health. I
Absolutely.
mean, you can't see her eyebrows, but they did go up when she had to answer that question. So there are people are we're still
people are struggling. People were struggling before the mental health and before the pandemic, and definitely after the pandemic, people are struggling even more and trying to find sense of normalcy, right? But again, as we know, life is there's so much stuff going on. The crimes, the things happening not too long ago in Atlanta, with the shootings.
I know.
The house market and all these things. So people are under a lot of stress and pressure. So taking care of our mental health is key in all of this pressure, because these are pressures that we can't really avoid or do anything about to some extent. But what we can do something about is how we choose to take care of ourselves.
Right.
So,
as a professional, though, Natalie, you're seeing a surge. Like you're seeing more. Are you seeing more people come to you for help? Or are you seeing that there's just more problems or things that are triggering?
Well, it's a combination of both. What I'm seeing is people who are in a position at this point to recognize that they cannot do it alone.
Okay.
Right? And so these are people who high functioning professionals who's achieved a lot of things, but given the circumstances of what's happened in their life, given the stressors, given things at work, they've reached a point where it's become too much. Right, so I have a lot of those clients, and then I've had clients who's just always have struggled in terms of their mental health, and things just got harder. They just need more help in handling their stuff.
Now, we may have some new listeners, so let me be fair, because I just jumped right into the conversation because I know Natalie and I like Natalie. But tell the people, Natalie, how long have you been in your profession? What your title? How long you've been doing it? Give people a little background.
Okay. Well, I'm Natalie Ellis. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. And my profession is actually working to be licensed in multiple states outside of just Georgia, which is great. In the pandemic, because of having to stay home and with virtual stuff, so the pandemic kind of pushed some of that. And so I'm eventually able to see more people throughout the country. And so, as I said, I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Georgia. I've been licensed for over 20 years, actually 23 years. I've been licensed since 2000.
For 23 years.
Right.
Go on.
For 23 years. Since 2000, I've been licensed. I have a private practice here in the state of Georgia in the Decatur area. Where I, of course, see clients, and I see clients as young as 3 to as young as, I have a 92-year-old client as well, right? And so I see clients for individual therapy. I see couples. I see families, groups. And in my practice, I work with other counselors to become licensed. And then I also do trainings out of my office. So lots of things we can do in regards to mental health. And my key with my business, it's called Esteem Counseling and Consulting Services, and Esteem stands for Empower Self Through Enrichment, Education, and Motivation. And my whole mission is to empower others, right? Making sure that they are educated in the field of mental health, making sure they are empowered in the field of mental health, making sure that they are motivated to take care of their mental health. All of that.
Yes.
Okay.
And she says, hi, steamers, right?
Hi, I do. I do. In my social media, and I'm all over social media, I do start off by saying, hi, steamers.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You're doing such great work. So this is an honor to have you here today, Natalie, because I feel that you're extremely passionate about your profession and wanting to help other people and wanting to help. Not, not that you have a respective person, but I feel like you really want to help Black and brown people with their mental health, because we're struggling.
We are.
We're struggling. We're just now getting to a space, Natalie, where we can say that we need help. Like, we're identifying it, but there's still a huge gap. I think women may often come more so, and you know the numbers better than I do, and it may still be a struggle for men to really embody that. Is that right?
That is right. That is right. I do have a lot of male clients, though, however, but it is still very difficult.
That's awesome.
But like you mentioned, overall, there is still a lot of stigma and shame connected to mental health. And so people stay silent.
Yes.
Right? And so one of the things we talk about is if we could break the shame and the stigma, we could hopefully break the silence.
Yeah.
Right? So, and a lot of the work that I do in my social media page is to kind of destigmatize mental health and to take away the shame of mental health, at least the shame that holds us stuck, right? Because again, it's perfectly normal to feel shame of things that we disapprove of, and that's fine. But when now that shame puts us in a space where we're stuck and we be down on ourselves and we hate ourselves as a result of it, then that's not productive and gets us nowhere. Yeah, absolutely.
A word that I've learned this past year, if you will, is self-medicate.
Self-medicate. Yeah, I saw a post about that. It said, don't self-medicate.
Do the work.
Do the work.
Just do the work.
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm finding that because people might be embarrassed or there's stigmatism with trying to get help, and I'm air quoting help, because help could be different things,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes.
People are finding other vices or other means in trying to numb the pain or not deal with what is bothering them or what keeps coming up for them. That's another term, right? Things that keep coming up. Another hot word is triggers and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
And so I think what you offer is so important to just identify what is a step that we would need to do to eliminate doing self-medication? Right. Is there something we should do or look out for?
Absolutely. So one of the things I tell people is to become self-aware. So part of the work that I do with clients, which is, again, here's my book, How to Stay Mentally Healthy, a self-guide to self-awareness and self-discovery, because that is the first step, is awareness about what is going on with you to know what to do next, right? And when we're not aware of something, then there's really nothing to do about it. But when we start to acknowledge and own whatever's going on, then it puts us in position, what do we do next about it? And so when it comes to self-medicating, again, a lot of people are struggling, and they're not struggling now. They've been struggling, right? And again, depending on their traumas, depending on their upbringing, depending on their situations and life experiences, how to cope happens very early on, right? And so when it comes to self-medicating in results to drugs, there's probably behaviors that started very early on in people's lives that help them get through things. And then now this thing has become a habit, has become an addiction, for, for whatever capacity. And so at some point, yes, got to take a moment to recognize what the issue is and become self-aware, and then start doing the work.
And the self-medicate, Natalie, is not just, in my mind, is not necessarily just drugs. Sometimes it's eating.
Oh, yeah.
It's shopping. It's sex. It's pornography. It's da-da-da-da-da. Fill in the blank. Like, whatever you're doing.
Whatever you need to do that numbs you, that puts you in a position where you feel as if you can escape. Like, I have a lot of clients who dissociate, right? And so that's a form of, I don't want to say self-medication, but that's a form of just disconnecting as a way of coping, right?
Drinking.
Right? And so all these things puts us in the position to not fully deal with the situation, right? And so they help temporarily, but long-term, it doesn't help. And not unfortunately, but in order to heal and be in the journey of healing, we have to constantly face whatever the issue is. And confront it head on.
That's difficult though, Natalie.
Oh, it's very difficult.
It's hard.
It is.
We don't even want to look at ourselves in the mirror every day.
Right.
Just when we wake up and brush our teeth and wash our face, it's hard. Like, Good Morning Gorgeous, right? Mary J. Blige with the whole kind of getting us to appreciate what we see when we look in the mirror, extend kindness and love, and not be so hard on ourselves. So that is a big step for a lot of people.
It is.
And now you're talking about, like, deal with it, like face ourselves with this stuff.
It is. And that's a lot of the work that's necessary, which is why I encourage people to seek the additional support. And so as therapists, I tell people I'm a tool, right? And so whatever tool you need to do the work, whatever work that you need to do, seek professional help to do that. And so I'm a tool to help people get to that next step and to do the work towards their healing. And yes, and it's a lot of that. It's about being able to look at yourself in the mirror. It's about acknowledging the flaws, acknowledging all the things that you're ashamed of, that you hate, and what is necessary to confront those things and to take the necessary step forward, right? Because again, when we're not our best self, it becomes very difficult to be our best for others, right? And people feel it, right? We know it. The negative energy, right? When people aren't in good spaces, right? They're upset, they're mad, they're whatever they got going on, and here they are now. It affects us because they put it on us, right? And so the work starts with us.
Projecting. That's another word I learned.
They do project.
Behind your back. I've been learning.
Good for you. Good for you. Absolutely.
They're projecting on you.
They do project.
And you don't even know where this is coming from. You have no idea.
Right. And if you have your own trauma, we tend to personalize when somebody's projecting. So they put their stuff, they got whatever going on, they put it on us, and then next thing we know is, what did I do? Did I do something today? Now we're having our own internal struggles based on what the person is, when it had nothing to do with you.
I know.
And so another thing I tell clients, once we start doing the work, they start to recognize that, to say, hey, that's not, you're mad. You're mad about something else, got nothing to do with me, and how to not engage. Right? Because now when I'm engaging with you, my aura is off, and here we are. Right?
We're back and forth with
back and forth when some of that stuff is nothing to engage with, because it isn't yours to begin with.
But it's coming your way. That's the whole thing.
Definitely address it, right?
It's being projected towards you.
Sure. It's learning how to address something without personalizing it, because once we personalize it, now it's ruins my whole day.
Right.
Right.
We don't want that.
We can definitely check people. But checking people doesn't mean it has to ruin all of our path. You know, and so it's figuring that out.
It's an interesting thing in what you said, because you hit it on the head, is that the behaviors that we may see in someone, this just didn't happen today.
Right.
This is something that was down the road.
Yeah, it's a compilation of things.
Wow.
Yeah, because again, when somebody's reacting and responding and behaving at this moment, we see this moment and it definitely affects us in this moment. But again, we don't know what happened 10 minutes earlier. We don't know what happened a year earlier, 12 years earlier, right? And so many times, again, because people don't necessarily do their own work, many times people we carry all this stuff with us, right? We carry all this stuff with us, and then something happens, we smell something, we see something, we're triggered, or something is happening in this moment and we're triggered, and then we react to that trigger.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why we often see, again, none of that is okay, but that is what happens. And again, because we can only control ourselves,
right,
then it's my responsibility to make sure that I don't put that on someone. It's my responsibility to make sure that I don't just react and respond to anybody when it had nothing to do with them. I have to do that work for myself.
Yeah. Do we feel that the whole mental health is just getting cliche? Is it watering down, or is it really starting to get the momentum it deserves when we talk about mental health?
I think it's getting the momentum it deserves, but like anything else, when it's being talked about a lot, people start to see it as cliche or it's just an excuse, right? Whereas these things have always been there. And mental health is a real thing, right? Yes, mental health is not a reason to do behaviors that's heinous and that's inappropriate, but it is a thing also that's there. And so when we can acknowledge that as a thing, then hopefully when we address this thing, then we could avoid all these other things that comes along with it, right? And so if we're trying to fix a problem, an overall problem, we have to understand the whole issue connected to that problem, right? It doesn't exist. Nothing exists in a vacuum. Right, and so we have to be able to understand the whole picture. And so, yes, mental health, as cliche as it may seem, oh, this person did this, oh, it's their mental health, oh. But yeah, there's something to that. Yeah. Because again, if along the way that could have been addressed, some things may have been avoided.
Right.
Some things may have been handled differently.
Right. And you mentioned in your opening comments just what's going on in Atlanta. So, just last week or so, we caught the shooter, right? They caught the shooter, Deion Patterson, the alleged shooter that went into a medical facility and shot at 5 people. One had passed away. The others are in critical or fighting. They're not yet in stable condition, was the last thing that I've heard. And then people are trying to figure out, well, was his mental health? What was his triggers? Like, we don't know unless we talk to him.
Yeah, we won't ever know people's triggers, right? Because again, the thing about trauma, the thing about our experiences, we experience our experiences viscerally. That's not the right word, right? With all of our senses, what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, right? And so I could hear a song, and the song brings me back, right? If the song is associated to something great and positive, then it brings me to a happy mood. But if the song is associated with something scary and something traumatic, it could put me in a whole other mood. You won't know that. I didn't know that happened, but this song automatically puts me in that space. Right? And now once I'm in that space, I'm reacting and responding according to it. Now, if I am self-aware, then I can say, oh man, that song got me there. And let me do something to check myself so that I don't project it, right? But you have people who are constantly triggered and they don't even understand why they're triggered. They just find themselves angry, upset, pissed, and then here they are. Right? And on top of it too, it's again a compilation of things that can trigger us. Right now, it's you not. I'm asking you to hold my hand. You refusing to hold my hand, not knowing I had all this stuff happening. So this is minute, granted, but again, imagine somebody who is already struggling to fight for air in the water, and then this thing happens. So now you're totally drowning. Right? It's something small, but that thing is exactly what gets them under. And then here we have a reaction and a response. Again, none of this is okay. It's not okay to have that reaction. However, if we have a better handle on all those pieces, then maybe we could have given him a few more air, right? Give him an opportunity to have
because we don't want to see him go. We don't want to see him go like that. So Natalie, it's very difficult. There's so many things to ask when you are meeting someone new, right? Back in the day, it was like, do you have a job? Have you ever been married? Is your driver's license, is it suspended? Is it still, you don't have any parking tickets, do you? It's real, it's real casual. Now it feels like it's a laundry list of things. And one of those things that are on there could be, I don't know, how do you ask if you've had any trauma experiences or what triggers you? I don't know, how do you ask that? And then when it happens, you're just like in a space. You don't even know what to do with. How do we get to know?
How do we talk about those things?
Yeah, how do we get to know more about people we might be interested in, or just are inviting in our circle?
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think, again, the more self-aware we are of our own history, right, our genes, our family history, and knowing how those things affect us, the easier it becomes to potentially be okay with asking the question, right? But as we're avoiding our own stuff, we're trying to avoid with others as well, right? And so, and it's difficult, right? Mental health is still because it's so taboo. It's very hard to talk about, but it is important to. It's important to observe. It's important to observe how people interact within their families. It's important to ask, hey, have you ever experienced any kind of trauma? These are the things I've experienced, and this is how those things shaped my life.
Right.
What are the things you've experienced that shaped your life? Right? And so then once we start having these conversations, then it gives us more insight, right? The problems may still occur, right? Because again, we're not immune, because we're in a journey of wellness and health and healing. We're not immune from things happening to us, right? We're not immune from our emotions. We're not immune from those things because we're human at the end of the day, right? But in the awareness, we can be more intentional to do things differently.
Yeah. I met someone and just talking, and then, it led to another conversation. And then, he just said, I see a therapist. He just put it out. He's like, I see a therapist. I was like, oh, I was like, well, good for you. Nice. And, it was tied to the VA and that type of thing. And, he shared the reasons why he did. One was because of the pandemic.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And just not knowing, being a first line responder type position. He was one of the people that always had to show up for work. Right? Okay. So I won't disclose what he did. But his concern was he wasn't sure what was coming at him. Okay. He would never know. And so that was creating some sense of anxiety.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, kudos to you for realizing that was something going on with you, a trigger, if you will, and that you're taking advantage of your resources to get some help and just talking to someone about it. It's just a conversation, right?
Yes, it is.
And Natalie, it's just
a conversation, right? And again, and also with that conversation, because it is a heavy conversation, you also get to see how people react and respond to that, right? And whether or not this is something that they too have shame about, if there's any type of judgment surrounding those things, and that helps what to do next with all of that. Absolutely.
We talk about mental health all the time. We talk about the importance of it, but I still don't feel that it's incorporated in how even we make our money, right? In the sense as paid employees for corporate America. Like, for me to see someone like you, that's still an out-of-pocket, right? It's not typically included.
Well, there are some great things out there. For example, EAP, Employee Assistance Programs, right? And so what I think happens is employers don't do a good job of putting information out there to let people know, hey, these are all your benefits. These are all your benefits, right? But there's benefits out there. There's leave, there's family leave, the FMLA, there's all kind of these leaves. So with a lot of my clients, I'm talking to them about that stuff and saying, hey, talk to your employer and see if this is an option for you. See if this is an option for you. So there's that. So there's the opportunities are there. There's benefits out there. Of course, there could always be more.
Right.
Absolutely. And insurances can be better.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Health insurance is not the best. But that's my own soapbox with health insurance. With all insurances, period. But health insurances could very well be better.
That's where I was going. Yeah,
could very well be better. Yeah, because I have people who pay a lot out of pocket until their co-pays met, and there's some people who don't pay anything. And so it all depends on the insurance. It all depends on where you work that has great insurance versus not so great insurance. Yeah. So it's all those things. But the other interesting piece about that too is knowing that there's resources out there is one thing. And then giving yourself permission to use the resource. Because the other thing that I find too is clients who struggle with just taking a day off work.
Yeah. It's hard.
I mean, just take a day off, right? And then, I get feeling obligated. The layer of obligation to someone else supersedes the obligation just for self-care for yourself, right? Ooh. And to me, that's an issue, right? Because again, and with me, my question to every client, whenever they whenever they're posing questions or whenever there's concerns, I always say, well, what does that say about you? What does it say about you when you just decide to take off a day? Or say, I don't feel like going into work today. What does that say about you? And often, many times, we create our own narratives, right?
Yes.
Narratives that we've created from all of our experiences, all of our upbringing. And so, for example, I had a client, her narrative is, if I don't go into work, they might think I'm irresponsible.
Yeah.
Well, you've been going into work for the last 5 years. Taking a day off, that would be where that's what comes up, right? But that's what comes up, right? And so then being able to kind of see that, well, you're not irresponsible, but somewhere along the way over the years, that there was that message somewhere, right? That you gotta go, you know? And so, so talking through clients with about that, about utilizing the services. There are services, use them.
We just don't know how to turn off, Natalie.
We don't.
We don't, because we feel like if we don't go, we're lazy. Or we feel I can't lose a day at work because then I'm going to have to make up for that day that I stayed home and I could have went in. I wasn't really sick. I was, I could just make it till Friday. That's always the answer. We're saying that on Monday.
That's always.
If I could just make it to Friday.
Right.
And then, so we just don't know. Yeah. It's just difficult for some of us. I won't say for all, because some people be like, girl, I ain't going in.
Well, I've learned that it's not difficult for me, and that I value my self-care, and there's nothing selfish about self-care.
Okay.
Right? There's nothing selfish with saying to your employer, hey, I'm not going in today. Because again, guess what? They don't have a problem telling you to work extra hours and extra shift.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is
They'll
correct.
tell you come work extra hours, not caring how you're feeling, what's going on with you. They'll keep piling it on you. Yeah, right? And so when we're not setting those boundaries with them, then here we are. And the thing for me, again, going back to self-awareness, is over time, right? So when we've established these unhealthy behaviors by never taking the time off, right? Okay, today is not a big deal, but then when we wake up, it's been 3 months, 5 months, 6 months since you've had a vacation.
Yeah.
And then you're struggling with stuff. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense why you don't feel so well, right? Because that's what I get with clients. I don't feel so well. I don't know. And then once they start talking and I put that together, well, when was the last time you had a vacation? It's been. Oh, well, it makes sense why your body feels and your mind feels because you haven't had a break.
Yeah, you haven't had a break,
Right? So although time moves very quickly, and so those 3 months came just like that, but at the end of the day, it's still 3 months. And the body still feels that. Right? And then unfortunately, as what we find is, whether you choose to be intentional with your self-care, the body's going to do what it's going to do. Diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes. So stuff is going to happen anyway because your body's going to tell you, right? And we don't want to get there.
Yeah.
It's not okay to get there.
It's not.
Right?
And it's better to get ahead of it before there's even anything going on versus trying to take care of it once something shows its face.
And that's typically when people come in, right? When things are showing its face, when the doctor's telling them these things, when now they're noticing they just can't juggle anything anymore, right? Then that's when they're coming in because it's gotten to be so much. And I think the best approach to everything is to be proactive.
Yeah.
Being proactive and creating a pattern of that and a structure where you can be proactive to self-care.
I think we're proactive about other things in our life, Natalie, like our finances. We're learning to be more proactive about that, right? Whether that's reducing debt, saving up for a rainy day, through increasing 401ks and investing and doing things. I think there's a proactive movement there. I think we're proactive when we get up and we work out every day, right? Because we want to maintain a certain weight or lose weight or just be healthy. But that's self-care. That not for nothing, financials and health could, physical health can be components of one's self-care.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to diminish that, but I mean, just like I'm not doing it today, like shutting down, like, nope. No.
Right. And you're absolutely right, because all those emotional health, financial health, physical health, mental health, all of those are all parts of our health. And when we're proactive in all things, then it helps. It's definitely better. Absolutely. And so one thing I tell clients, it's when you're doing your part, trust that. And know that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? And so because we also live in fear-based, right? Fear of losing your job.
Yes.
Right?
That.
Fear of losing job.
Yes.
Fear of not having enough money, so you keep working, right? Fear, there's all these fears, and again, whether you like it or not, when the body's tired, it's going to do what it's going to do. So the money you're trying to not spend still gets spent. The money, you know, those things still tend to happen. Now you get medical bills. There's all these layers of problems that, again, could have been avoided potentially when you simply did the self-care. So I strongly encourage people to do that.
So wise, so wise. What I find is that if we can't control relationships. Like we can't control how people may feel or not feel about us. And then we pivot, right? So I can't do anything about that. So I'm going to overload in these other I'm a overload in these other areas to make it seem like I have some sense of control, to numb any kind of effects or emotions, or to look like I'm working through what has happened. Do you sense that a little bit with some of your clients, or am I your only one?
Well, when things feel out of control, for a lot of people, it's trying to gain some of that control back.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And many times we are trying to gain control back in ways that's still also not always productive or efficient, right? So trying to control by controlling people, by controlling things that's still outside of your control.
Right.
Because what you can control is strictly your reaction, your response, just you, right? But then when you're trying to control other things and come to find out, oh, you can't. So there's always this anxiety of what's going to happen. Yeah, because that is a question that's going to always be there. You know, and so people find themselves constantly either going down rabbit holes or in this rat race.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's taking a step back with, again, which is why I talk to clients a lot about when you're doing the things you need to be doing for yourself in terms of self-care, in terms of saving money. The worry about what may happen isn't so much that.
Yes.
Right? Because it may or may not happen.
May not.
But if it does, because you've done your part, you should be okay. And so it's also learn to trust that, right? And so for a lot of my clients, they do struggle a lot with trust. Just trusting themselves, faith, you know, that everything's going to be okay. And so there's this constant trying to make everything okay, everything okay. And then it creates more anxiety because, as we know too, life, the more you're trying to make something, there's still more stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I find, Natalie, that the best thing for me, I've discovered this. I've learned a lot since the last time.
Nice. That's exciting.
So another thing, I had a thing, Natalie, that as if I'm in something and it didn't end well or resonate in a good place, I would always be, I just hate this feeling. I can't wait till I get to get through it. I was trying to rush the through process of it, like trying to get to the other side of it.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
And what has helped is enjoying the day.
Yeah.
Enjoying the journey of getting to that side. So even though I'm still working through things, I'm enjoying the day versus the anxiety of hurrying up to try to get through it. So that this feeling of emotions or whatever it is can get off of me. Instead of that, it's like I'm enjoying the day.
Absolutely.
So however I feel, but I'm not rushing a process because I don't like process, but I'm getting better. And I've always told you that, like, I don't like the process, Natalie, but I'm getting better at it to understand. And it's a maturity thing, not to you know, it's very hard, but it's a part of life, right? That you're going to have some ups and some downs and ebbs and flows. Absolutely. And it's just a matter of how do you want to row your boat through that, right? And I just didn't want to be in anxiety, like or emotional, where it's like, you know, I'm waiting and rushing to get to the end of the rainbow. I want to enjoy every day because there's lessons to be learned, right?
There is.
That's the part too that we have to embrace, that there's something to learn out of what you're going through, what you've experienced, what you've come through. And I think another thing, we don't afford ourselves enough of our own strength. The fact that we've made it from one day to the next is remarkable. We should commend ourselves because some people did not make it. So we're hard on ourselves. So I'm learning that every little thing matters and counts.
And it does. And that's a really good point. And for a lot of my clients, I'm always having to help them identify that by just sitting, right? Sitting with what you have going on, but also taking a step back and seeing where you came from.
Yes, that part.
Because I get where you are isn't where you want to be.
Right.
Which is, again, the good point of what you say, because we're constantly over here.
Yes.
Right? And we just can't wait to get there.
That part.
But in that, too, we miss a lot.
Yes.
Right? The present is truly a gift.
It is.
Right? And learning to embrace the present and learning to, in embracing the present, you're also embracing your experiences. And so it's okay to acknowledge what you feel, but know that you're going to be okay and know that tomorrow will be different. Right. But in this moment, it's okay to acknowledge what you're feeling. Yeah. And that strength is a big piece. And sometimes I have to tell clients, look at all what you've accomplished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're still standing. You're still here. You know, despite what have you had to experience, you know, you've had some resiliency, and you're still here. So give yourself, pat yourself on the back. That's okay to do.
It is.
It's a wonderful thing to do. Yeah, I've learned the journey can be refreshing versus just trying to hurry up and get to the end point, because I could miss things and I don't want to miss things.
Absolutely. And what happens too when we tend to hurry is it's almost as if we're dismissing what we've experienced. Wow, and so one thing I tell people too, it's just like I have clients who suffers a loss, a death, right? And again, because it's so uncomfortable, because it doesn't feel good, we just want to get back to normal, right? And so two things there. There's no normal to what, there's no going back to the normal that we knew. Right. Because again, it's a new normal, right? Yeah. So understanding that experience. And so when you're trying to go back to something that no longer exists, obviously it always feels as if you could never get there because it doesn't exist anymore, right? And so it's figuring out a new normal. But at the same time, when we're just trying to rush to get there too, it's almost as if all that you are going through doesn't matter, right? It's okay to be angry and feel angry about what's happened. It's okay to be sad and feel sad about what's happened. It's okay to feel guilt about what's happened, right? Yes, we don't want to stay in those spaces, but it's okay to acknowledge it. But to acknowledge it, you have to give yourself that opportunity and space to do so, right? And so it's interesting how we don't tend to validate what we have going on, but we don't like it if somebody doesn't do it, doesn't validate us, right? Right. If somebody says, you know, you're feeling this and you tell them, get over it. You know, we don't like how it feels, get over it, right? But then we're telling ourselves that. Yeah. Right? Indirectly. That's something we were kind of doing to ourselves by saying, nope, I shouldn't feel this. Let me just get here. Get over it. Right? And so we want to validate and we want to acknowledge what we're feeling and put words to it, because it does matter when we put words to it, when we say it out loud. I encourage my clients to say out loud what you're feeling. And in that moment, take that deep breath. If you need to sit with it for a minute, sit with it for a minute. And at times if you say, nope, it's time to get up and go, then you get up and go. But at least validate what's happening. Let's just not pretend, right? Because that's what tends to happen, right? It's pretending as if, this doesn't exist, and just putting it aside as if this doesn't exist. But again, which is the awareness is another big piece. We want to, mind, body, soul everything's connected, right? And so because I'm putting something aside doesn't mean it no longer exists, right? And so we tend to put things aside, our experiences, our bad stuff. We just kind of put it here as if it didn't matter, right? As if it can't, because we don't want to feel all the emotions connected to it, right? It's uncomfortable. Right? Because it's very uncomfortable. But as we put it here, we're putting it here with the weight. And what I often tell clients too, by the time they come sit with me, it's that weight has now gotten very heavy, right? And so the work I have to do with clients is we have to get through all that. We got to unpack this bag that you've been carrying of weight, and we got to go through it. And I know that's what's hard. It is hard. It's hard to look at your pain, right? Because you already feel it, right? But it's hard to have to look at it and dissect it
and talk about it too.
And talk about it and sit with it.
It's a lot. It's a lot, Natalie.
It does get to be a lot.
It's not easy.
It's not.
Because the older we get, some of us have been carrying stuff since we were 10, 8, 6. You're talking to clients now at 3. They've only been on the planet 3 years and they need to talk to you already?
They do. I mean, as we know, trauma doesn't start. First of all, trauma starts in embryo, right? Yeah. If the woman is going through a lot of stuff, guess what? The baby's going through a lot of stuff.
Wow, that's true.
Right? Everything that's affecting the woman is affecting the baby. So there's babies already coming with lots of stuff going on emotionally, because all those things do affect the neurons of our body, our chemical makeup, right? And so, and you got babies too in environments where there is domestic violence, where there is things happening, where there's constant yelling, where there's people fighting. And so that baby's affected. So, babies are human. They see everything too. They just don't have the words to say anything, but they're experiencing it. And guess what? The body remembers, which is again what I said with we experience things with all of our senses, what we hear, what we see, what we smell, what we taste, right? The baby hears, sees, smells, tastes. So they're experiencing life with all of that. And so although I have clients who don't necessarily remember things that happened to them at 3, at 2, but they're reacting and responding to the trauma that happened to them at 2 or 3. Because if somebody yells, it might be something like this. They might be like, they feel uncomfortable. They
feel it.
They sense it, right? They could smell something and it's like, right?
Wow. Yeah,
they sense it. And so when clients are specifically dealing and talking about traumas, then that's a lot of the work that we do, how to dive deep into some of those things that's in our psyche to get to get it out in the open, to be aware. And the work isn't easy, because being woke about our mental health, it's a lot. It's a lot. And yes, and we are responsible for figuring it out, even though somebody else may have caused the damage.
Yes.
But we are responsible for fixing the damage that's been caused to us.
Natalie, do you feel that what you eat impacts your...
Oh, yeah. I'm all about the total self. It's a whole. We have to take care of our whole self.
Yes.
Right? So yes, omega-3s help with mood, right? Making sure you pay attention to what you eat, making sure you get enough sleep, making sure you're exercising, movement, getting sunlight. All of those things affect our mood, affect our thoughts, affect us. And so it's the whole self is part of that self-care. So yes, eating habits is important. Absolutely.
For somebody that might be on the fence, that's listening or watching, and they're like, I think there's something going on with me. I don't know. What could you recommend as a first step for that person?
Well, if they're again thinking something's going on with them, I definitely encourage them to speak with. Again, if there is a PCP, a primary care physician, talk to your doctor.
Okay.
All right, talk to your doctor. Because again, when clients come to me, although yes, the assumption is it's a mental health related, right? But I always say, when was the last time you had your physical? Because again, our thyroid affects our mood, right? Different things going on with our body chemically affects us, right? And so, when was the last time you had blood work done? Let's get all these things done. And if everything's normal, okay, now we know for sure it's more mental health, right? Versus something chemically going on. But yeah, some people's thyroid levels could be off. When our levels are off, sugar level brings irritation. When our levels are off, it affects us. And so we want to make sure we are taking care of our physical health and our mental. It's all together, collectively. And yes, It's a lot. It's a lot. I got to pay attention to what I eat, and I got to pay attention to making sure I breathe, making sure I do this, making sure I do that. It's a lot to pay attention to, but it's in the long run, it becomes easier over time, and in the long run, it makes going through life so much easier.
Now, you've been a busy little person. Steamers. Hey, steamers. I see books. I see books. So what led you to write the books that we have here on the desk? How to stay
mentally healthy. Yep. So it's a workbook, a guided workbook to self-awareness and self-discovery. So the workbook is made up of activities that I do with clients. So I'm very hands-on. So, I use my whole office to show examples. I'm standing up, I'm trying to give scenarios, and so I use everything. And so I give worksheets too. I'm writing things down. And so everything that I've kind of done with clients in terms of activities, I'm like, oh, you know what? Rather than keep writing it every time, I could just put it in a book and I could say, hey, clients, this is the activity I want you to do. Can you go get the book? Can you go order the book? Or sometimes I just show them the activity and say, here, if you could copy the activity. Right? And so this particular workbook is made out of, is from that. It's birthed from all the things that I do with my clients, and here we are. And so it's just lots of basic, and it's, in some ways, it's for people who's new into therapy. To some extent, new into this idea of self-work, self-care, right? New into that, because a lot of my clients who are very insightful, who's been doing the work, they've been doing the work. So they've been doing workbooks. They've been they've been doing that. But for people who are fairly new into it, this is a great place to start. It just has lots of great activities to help you become self-aware, and some activities in terms of things going into your childhood. And one of the things that I have all my clients do, it's this inventory called the ACE, Adverse Childhood Experiences. And this is an activity, a workbook not a workbook, but an inventory that's been out for a very long time, because it asks basic questions about your upbringing before age 18. And so research has been found, because the CDC and Kaiser have done research utilizing these questions with adult clients, to see a correlation with when these things have happened in your life, it increases risks, right? And so the more of these things, so there's 10 questions. If every yes that you answer to the questions, then there's a higher risk, particularly when there isn't interventions, when there isn't support in place. And so for me, it's good to know that, because that helps give clients, have the conversation with clients to say, oh. And so when they're coming and noticing all these things, well, you've had a lot of different things that's happened. Those things, to some extent, are traumatic. Those things are things that's affected. And we're just living life, so we don't necessarily always know trauma, not trauma. We just live it, and then we put it away. We live it, we put it away, and then after a while, it's all of these things that's gotten to be very, very heavy. And so, there's all those activities are in the book. And just, again, to start the conversation, to help people become aware, because that's the first place. That would be what I would say to start.
Sometimes it's the awareness part, Natalie, and it's owning it too.
Owning it.
Because I believe that there are some people that are aware of what triggers them and what bothers them and how they've been masking.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then it's the ownership part, because that's where it really becomes uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Right? Because there are some pieces of whatever it is that a person experiences. Some of it was not in their control. No. And they're carrying it. And then there might be some pieces of something else that it was there. Or it could have been mutual. It could have been whatever it is, right? But I think people some people have some sense of awareness that something like this, it puts me in a space, in a mood, a thought, a feeling. But the owning of it is the part that is difficult.
Absolutely.
And that's the part that helps them get free.
It's the other part, So the awareness of it, acknowledging this thing, and also being mindful that this thing is impacting me, right?
Yes.
And like you said, owning it, because again, in these questionings, it puts us in a position to say what to do next. And so with all my clients, it's always, what do you want to do about that? It's okay to also tell me, I choose to ignore it. But these are very conscious to say you choose to ignore it. And so when this other thing happens, also know this is the result of that, right? Because part of also with my practice and when I talk to clients is also helping people know we're not victims. We're not victims of things, right? And to not be victims, you got to know you have options. You being aware that you have a choice, and we could choose to stay a victim. We could choose that too. We could choose to say, I'm going to choose to stay here, knowing all the bad stuff happening.
Oh, that's powerful.
And that's okay if you feel if that's what seems to work, then do that. But then no, you don't have to be here, right? And I think that's a lot of what I try to help people do.
That's the empowerment
once we know,
piece.
Exactly.
That's the empowerment
right?
piece.
Once you know all of whatever's going on, know you have options to do a lot of things.
Yes.
But when we don't know, we just don't know. We're very tunnel vision. We just think this is it, and we feel trapped. We feel stuck. We feel as if there's nothing we could do.
Yeah.
And part of my work with clients is no, you can do a whole lot.
Yeah.
Now, how much of a lot you want to do? It's all up to you.
Yeah, it's that victim piece, though, I think, that people feel that I am the victim. People won't understand or get me. And there's nothing that can help me. They also feel like there's no sense of options or no sense of really, truly working through this, because it doesn't go away. But you can work through it, that it's more manageable. It's not taking over you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Right.
So it's not consuming, right?
Yeah.
And so when I do trauma work with clients, one of the questions that I ask them is based on this particular memory or event that we're going to talk about, how heavy is it? How painful is it? How hurtful is it from a scale of 1 to 10, right? For a lot of my clients, when they're coming in initially, it feels heavy. As they talk about it, you could see the distress, you could see the tears, you could see the discomfort, right? It's very debilitating, right? And so when something is debilitating, it feels like it's hard to move. And part of our job as therapists, at least for me, my job as a therapist, is to kind of help take it off a little bit.
Yes.
Off a little bit.
Thank you.
Just a little bit more time, because it may take a little bit of work, right? Just off a little bit so it doesn't feel so debilitating.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And again, a lot of that too gets connected to our narratives, how we perceive things, how we see things, right? When a person perceives, if I take off work, I am lazy, I'm no good, then that's definitely a heavy weight.
Yeah,
when that's the narrative that's connected to taking off work. So I could definitely see why you would be feel guilty, feel all these things when that's what is connected to that.
Yeah.
How can we shift that so that we could lift the guilt? We could lift some of that. Right? And so part of that is having the conversation in terms of their history, their past, and helping them acknowledge, but you've done all this stuff. So taking a day off means that. And interestingly enough, when people say things out loud, it's like, no, it doesn't mean that. Well then, but the narrative, because when we create narratives from especially our childhood, we were stuck in it. We believe it, right? Yeah. And then when they start to say that, no, it doesn't mean that, right? Yeah. It doesn't mean that. Yeah. So let's and taking the time now to get out of that narrative, shift the narrative to something else, so that so action could then take place.
And it's a consistent thing. It's almost like an addict. Like once you say I'm a sweet tooth addict. I like sweets. Let's use that. Yeah. And once you know that that's every day. You have to work at it so that you're not consumed or operating in that space, right? Same thing here, right? For me, I had some stuff when I was a little kid, and I have to give myself grace because, Natalie, I feel that emotional trauma is different, right? From sexually abused or being raped. And I would minimize my trauma because I would say I was fortunate that I didn't have any inappropriate behavior happening to me when I was a young child and I was scarred. No, I had emotional type stuff like insecurities and things like that. And people said, no, that's your bag. It's worth something. Don't diminish it, right? But it's a constant work because it took me not until my 40s, late 40s, to realize I was cute. Yeah. Because I wasn't told that. Absolutely. And I carried that. Absolutely. Right.
We do.
We carry it.
We do.
You don't even realize it. Well, okay. Right. I'm not. And it's a daily thing.
It's a daily thing.
So if people laugh and they smile, oh, Michelle, yeah, we know you're cute, but they don't know that it is a daily thing, that when I get up in the morning, when I look in the mirror and brushing my teeth, I give myself the old wink, like, you know what? You're more than all right. You're more than enough. Absolutely. I have to say things like that. Absolutely. Every single day. Absolutely. So yeah, it's like a muscle, Natalie.
It is.
That I'm learning to work, right, for myself. And that's why I say I'm doing the work, because before I was waiting on people to give me that affirmation.
Sure.
I thought it was someone else's responsibility to make me feel a certain way. But I'm owning it. I own it. Right? I realized it was there. We're talking about it. I realized it was there. I own it. And so every day I do a little bit to work that muscle so that it's not, it doesn't have any weight. It used to weigh me down. It used to have me crying, feeling away about my own self and my self-worth and my value. And so just doing something like that every day, it gives me a different perspective.
It does.
On my day, on my life, and who I am and what I bring.
Absolutely.
Just something as little as, for me, and that's me, and that's my story.
Absolutely.
Just because I had triggers.
Absolutely.
Like, so we all have something.
We do.
But I think, if you own it and be okay with it, it's okay, because you get things that you didn't even ask for. Sometimes you carry things you didn't even know, like, why are you telling me this? Why are you doing this? Why are you touching me? Why are you doing, like, you don't even know. Right. And you're carrying this thing and you feel like this embarrassment or whatever it is, and shame. No.
Absolutely.
None of that.
And nothing is off the table, I tell my clients, right? If something brings an emotion to you, no matter how small.
Yes, come on, Natalie.
Acknowledge that.
Yes.
Absolutely, right?
Yes.
There's no difference, I guess, in some ways. There's no necessary difference to, if this feels hurtful, it feels hurtful.
It's my shoes.
It's exactly
it's my
your
shoes, and they hurt, or it feels away, and it's different. And we don't have the same experiences because we're all different people. We all come from different walks of life, different neighborhoods, different cultures. Our genders, it could be gender related. It's different, and so just understanding and respecting that takes a weight off of you already.
Absolutely, because one thing you said too, in acknowledging that and understanding that, then it gives you permission to do something about it, right? But then when it feels as if, oh, I shouldn't complain about this, or I shouldn't bring this up, or it's no big deal, right? But everything is a big deal, because again, it's not necessarily a big deal in relatively, sure,
right?
But again, which is why it's important also to, you can't look at everybody else. Where are you? If this thing has kept you at step 2,
come on now,
forever, then it's a problem. I mean, that's it. It may not have kept anybody else at step 2. It kept moving, but they kept moving. But if you are stuck, then obviously this thing is something that has kept you stuck.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation.
Absolutely.
I love having conversations with that. Natalie's so good. You have other books? You have other materials?
I do. So I wrote other books, and you should see them up. So there's Where's My Daddy? A Girl's Guide to Grieving an Absent Father. But I also have a boy version of the book. So a boy's book, Where's My Daddy? A Boy's Guide to Grieving an Absent Father. And actually, the boy book is a book that I wrote with my son.
Nice.
And so my son has his own experiences of having an absent father. And in this case, absent in terms of he's still living. Yeah. But he's just haven't been consistently around. He's inconsistent.
Come on now. Okay.
He's inconsistent consistently. All right.
He's consistently inconsistent.
Right.
There you go.
In his presence in all of that growing up. And so we saw some effects of that. And so when he was young, we put some things together. And so even though he's now 18, but so is when we recently published the book in 2019. Yeah. When he turned 18, but it is a book from more so his childhood in terms of the effects of not having a father around and how that felt, because he knew his father, and at some point father wasn't around, and just missing him and going through that grieving process. And so the reason I brought this book out, because I do have a lot of clients who have absent parents.
Really?
mothers or fathers, and they don't necessarily recognize it as a loss. And that loss requires you to grieve.
Yeah.
Right? And so we tend to just associate loss with death. Right? But the person not being in your life is a loss too. Right? And when we experience any layers of loss, when something is there and disappears, or is supposed to be there isn't there, then there's something missing.
Yeah.
And in that missing, we have to grieve. We go through a grieving experience, and grieving. And so the book talks about the stages of grief, and how he went through the stages of grief, and talking about that. And so again, I encourage parents to get this book and to talk to your child, if you have a child in that position, about that, and to start doing the steps to acknowledge that it is a loss. And so because there is another man there, it doesn't take away the loss. Right? You still go through your grieving. Right? And so again, to say, well, you have somebody else there, or he's never been there, you don't even know him, because I get clients like that in those situations too. But the fact that you too doesn't know, that itself is significant.
That is a
right,
huge
and going
thing.
through the loss of never having to have experienced that.
Ooh, Natalie.
And those things do affect people.
They do. In a big way.
In big ways.
In a big way.
Right? And just emotionally, and how we connect and how we relate. And again, with my son, I'm learning a lot of that, because I do have both of my parents. My parents are still married. They just celebrated 50 years, and I see both my mom and dad all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's through him that I got to see some of that, and through all my clients who's had those experiences of having an absent parent, how significant questions that doesn't come to my mind comes to their mind. Because that's their experience, right? I've never experienced those things, so that's not a question.
You're not thinking that way.
A loss and going into relationships too, the fear of being hurt in certain ways.
Abandonment.
Abandonment. I've never been abandoned. I don't know what that is. Trust, right?
There's no trust.
Because there's trust. Trust automatically is something that comes when the person's supposed to be there isn't there, and doesn't follow through on what they say they're going to do. Trust. And again, our parents is our first everything.
I know.
Our first love,
here's
and our first heartbreak.
Here's another hard one. You don't really love me. You're just saying that because there are pockets of love that's missing. You don't know what that is. Absolutely. You have these questions like, did this person know about me and still chose not to be in my life? Or they're here and they give me crumbs. They're breadcrumbing me. Yeah. Like they can't. Like I'm not a priority. Like it's a lot.
Right. So when you have these questions with a parent, automatically those questions are going to come up in relationships.
Ooh.
Right. Automatically. And again, consciously or unconsciously, you're going to question whether another person loves you. Whether the person does, because those are things.
What's their intentions? What's your motives? Where are you going? What are you doing? How long are you going to stay? Does you really mean this? This is not. You can't. This can't be. This can't possibly be it.
You know
what? You don't really love me. This is.
Absolutely.
You got options. You got stuff going on. I'm just like,
whereas with the person who's had both parents, those aren't the things. And it's interesting, and I wouldn't mind doing some type of study on that.
Yeah.
I have clients who are in marriages, successful marriages with they themselves have an absent parent, but their husbands or wives have both their parents.
Okay.
And how the mindset of how they move around is so different, because it is different. It's different. Because you have somebody who's walking around not trusting, and you have somebody who trusts, who doesn't even think, right? Meaning it'll work itself out.
Yeah, it'll work.
I mean, why is that even a thought, right? And that's how I function.
Yeah.
That's how I've because again, I haven't had a growing up where I mistrust things. Everything that's needed to be there have always been there.
Yeah. For some, for some, Natalie, it's a sense of independence. Like some of us are very independent because we're like, we can't count on that person. Right. That parent wasn't there as much as the primary parent, right? And it could be male or female. I don't even want to go there because some dads are stepping up and the moms are not. So whoever that primary parent is, and so you see a sense of independence. Yeah. You see strength. You see, I can't really depend on anyone else. It's just me, or it's not going to happen.
Absolutely, and which is a positive and great until they need someone, right? Yeah. And then this notion of I can't need someone. So then that becomes the thing that pushes that, right? Okay. I can't need someone, and I shouldn't need someone because they will disappoint me.
They're not going to come.
They're not going to come forward, right? And so then that person does feel alone.
They do.
Right? Which is what I get. I get the client saying, I feel alone. Yeah. Feeling as if they really can't depend on anyone else but themselves. And that's a lonely place to be.
That is a very lonely place to be. But it's a reality, and it's a thing that you work through every single day to remain open to the possibilities of that not being the narrative forever.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's just a seasonal thing. I look at it as maybe just for a season. Some seasons are longer than others.
Right.
But that's what we have.
Absolutely.
What else do you have? You have any other projects or works coming?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the T-shirt too. So I do have a T-shirt, Mental Health Matters. And if you don't mind, I don't know if you could stand up. And so it says, in the back says, Me versus Me, a time for therapy. So just to give my son a little plug, this is my son's design, Nathaniel Ellis with Enigmatic Living. And so we designed this shirt together to reinforce the importance of mental health and that a lot of the struggle is really internal. Right? So people do put their stuff on us. You know, parents, our experiences do put a lot of stuff on us, but at the end of the day, we struggle internally. Right? Mental health matters. Right?
All the time.
We struggle internally, which is why we wanted to say that it's me versus me. Because our parent or our experiences could plant the seed, but guess who continues to water the seed?
Us, me.
We do. Me. So even though they didn't instill positivity into you or esteem into you, right? They started that, they planted that, but then at some point you choose to decide whether or not you're going to keep going with that, or if you're going to say, you know what, they didn't do it, but I'm going to do it for myself.
I'm going to do it.
And so then this becomes about me versus me at this point, right? So which is why we wanted to go with that. And then time for therapy. And again, if therapy is an avenue, you know, I encourage, there's all types of resources and tools out there, but as a mental health therapist, I definitely encourage people to get therapy and to see therapy as a tool. I am a tool for individuals. And just like we go to the dentist every 6 months, because at some point, even though we brush our teeth every day, right? At some point we need an additional cleaning, right? We go to the doctor because, again, even though we're doing our best to take care of ourselves, there's things the doctors need to do. And so there's nothing wrong with going to see a professional to talk about our mind, talk about our experience, talk about what's happening, just to give some insight and some guidance, right? And again, there's various layers of mental health and mental wellness, of mental illness, right? There's lots of layers. And so a person doesn't have to be to the point of crazy, which is not an appropriate term, but to that point, or to any point of significant mental illness, to come in and get help, right? At all levels, we can get the help to just take off that weight, take off that burden, right? And so that we can take the step forward, right? And again, it's when we're feeling stuck, it's how to get unstuck. And if I could help anybody get unstuck so that they could move forward, so that they could be their best self. And that's important for people to be, because when people are happy being their best self, guess what? We feel it, because then they're not putting their stuff on us. Because the person who's miserable, you feel it too. I mean, we feel it. We go to the grocery store, we know who's miserable. But versus the person who's happy. Feels good.
I know.
So we want to empower that and reinforce that and have more of that for people to feel good and be good, right? And so, yes, although it's never okay for customer service to be not good, but again, when people got a lot of stuff going on, we're gonna feel that and see that. And so, if we could encourage somebody, it sounds like, you know, I'm always good when people act out in front of me in customer service with the cashiers. I'm like, you're having a rough day, huh? I mean, obviously, because I don't personalize it, because it's not about me. You don't know me. You got nothing to do with me. So you have an attitude. It's not about me. You're having a rough day, and they're probably they're like, I'm ready to go. I got to go to your bathroom. I got to go do this. You hear all kinds of things as you say that. It's like, well, just take a deep breath. And hopefully it'll be over. You know, you get what you need. Right. But then in helping them recognize that, and hopefully they could recognize for themselves and says, I just need a break. And hopefully they could do what they need to do so that they don't continue to shit on the next person. You might want to get asked for that break.
And it came with the slap.
And of course I do it so nice, right? She does. Now me having an attitude back wouldn't help anything. Now
I like it.
Now we're fighting in the middle of Walmart, and then police come to get people, right? We don't need all that. When I can simply say, you're having a rough day.
Don't mess with the Haitian therapist, Don't mess with her. This is my friend Natalie. She's so good. This was excellent, Natalie.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really enjoy coming to talk about mental health.
Yes, you love it. And as the years go on, you just get more excited and passionate about it. You're growing as well,
Yes.
So this is awesome.
Thank you so much. I enjoy talking about this topic. This is such an important topic, and as people are giving themselves permission, as we saw throughout the Olympics, and we see throughout, social media, a lot of people are really starting to own their mental health and doing what they need to do to do the work. And again, there's this notion of people are not as strong as people before, or whatever those notions are. People now, they definitely have more on their plate that's not necessary, right? With social media has opened up a whole lot of can of worms that, feel we have to compete, feel we have to do a lot of stuff that
we have to be present and all
that
this other stuff. Yeah.
People didn't have to do. So people are burdened with a lot. And if whatever they need to do to unload some of that burden so that they could be better people, and so then inadvertently be better for others as well. Yeah. Right? And that's the thing with self-care, right? Right. Self-care isn't selfish, because when you are better, you are inevitably better around others.
Yes. Yep. How can people find you, Natalie? Where can people find
definitely. So I am on social media. Esteem Counseling Services is my hashtag or my line handle. Yes. Social media handle, Esteem Counseling Services. And again, I am in the Decatur area if anybody wants to see me face to face. So I do offer virtual sessions for clients 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week I'm in the office.
Awesome.
And I try to do groups and try to provide insight and information and education. So definitely seek out my social media page for information.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. This was
so
awesome.
Welcome. Thank you, Michelle. I definitely enjoy coming.
Yes, man, I like Natalie. So that's my time. I'm Real Chicks Rock, and I'm everywhere. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Go check out the website, realchicksrock.com. Go copy a t-shirt. Subscribe so you don't miss our newsletters, because we blog too. And sign up to the YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe to these podcasts and shows so you don't miss it. Until next time, may you live to be 100, and I live to be 100 minus a day, so I never knew that beautiful people like you had passed away. Until next